sports fans? Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It is a Monday. Happy New Year of 2026. Excited for this one. A crazy weekend. I can't wait to get into it with all of you guys. NFL season's come to a close. Playoffs are upon us. Wherever and however you may be watching and listening, thanks for making us part of your day. So much to talk about. Friday is going to be a loaded show. I cannot wait to talk about that. We got a lot of really good guests that are going to be coming on here around the corner on the show. But I figured we'd take today to end up discussing what we just ended up witnessing all throughout the weekend and throughout the rest of the season. So here's what I will have to say. So last night was fun. It was awesome. Because the fact of the matter was, there was a take I made at the beginning of the season. And that take was New England was going to make the playoffs. Check. I then said Pittsburgh would not. Cross that all off. Pittsburgh is in the playoffs. They're on their way. And to me, the way that I described this, Pittsburgh and Aaron Rodgers, that's all it leaned into. It wasn't so much Mike Tomlin. It wasn't so much of just that defense. It was more of Aaron Rodgers since November has not thrown a pick. And all he had to do in a ranked 28th, 29th wide receiving core, all he had to do was just distribute to all of his weapons. And Pittsburgh came away with it. I'll get into Baltimore here in just a moment. But this game, and like a lot of division rival games that always end up at the Sunday night football games, are always the fun ones. Because these are the games you play all out to win. And so when it came to that opinion of Pittsburgh, once again, they're over 500. I'm not sure I trust them in the playoffs just because of the way that the defense plays. But I know when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, he's going to do whatever it takes to make sure Pittsburgh gets the monkey off their back to win a playoff game. And I know that without a doubt. Now, it's crazy because we all thought the same things. It was an up, down roller coaster, which is exactly what Pittsburgh's season has been all season long. I mean, first you start with Aaron, then you pay so much on defense, and now the Pittsburgh Steelers have won the division and are in the playoffs, and they're going to play Houston in their first matchup. So I think the Steelers, all they're going to have to lean into is a lot of their experience more than anything else. Talent-wise, I don't know if they truthfully have the guys to at least match up toe-to-toe with what Houston does, because Houston, let's be honest, they're hungry, they're on fire, and they got a lot to prove with themselves. Defensively, they can get pressures, they can shut down the pass game, and all it's going to be up to is Aaron Rodgers to do what Aaron Rodgers does best. Now, how much of that does he have left in the tank is going to be left to be said. But through this, I can be happy with. I really can. And again, it's remarkable on how the NFL loves to put together a season. And I love the way in which this season has carried on, how the way that this season has transpired. I mean, that's the work of the NFL for you. Now, just about towards the end, I am going to end up having my predictions I made at the start of the season, and we're going to show the reality of what happened to all of them. And we'll see how accurate we are. All right, now Baltimore, because we're going to talk about head coaches a little bit later on in the show. Baltimore has a lot they need to talk about. Because in this game, all we know was if Lamar Jackson did not end up playing in the game, they were going to run majority of the time on the ground with Derrick Henry. And you got to think, that football game against Green Bay, they were running all over the place. When you give someone like Derrick Henry, who's physically gifted, has really good speed, even at his age, 40 times a carry, like 40 carries, he's going to give you something. And Baltimore, they did not lean into the strength that has helped them for a long time, and that's running the football. Why? You know, I think about this more than anything else, but the power of social media really does do disservices in so many different ways. The reason is, with all the chirps and with all the conversations happening in the building between John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson and all this other stuff, it's typical. Social media has a lot of influences, and it's all because they want the stories out there, because somebody wants it out there. That's all it comes down to. And truth be told, the minute that all this stuff started spurring about, Baltimore had to play their best. Baltimore was running the football efficiently. And now all it took was for Baltimore to find a way to get themselves in healthier position. And they did not. And it came all the way down to Tyler Loop, who had to come up and kick the football and at least get Baltimore over the top and win the division. And even that was stressful in itself. You cannot blame anybody else than just their own works, their own making. That is all it comes down to. And Baltimore, they got a lot of question marks. Because in my opinion, I think they're going to have to make some changes at their leadership. Because I'll be honest with you, if you're contemplating having to trade your star quarterback all because of what social media's put together, you are out of your gourd. And that's insane. That's crazy. That's nuts. Lamar Jackson is twitchy. Lamar Jackson wins you 75 to 80% of your games. And you're talking about trading him? You're talking about problems in the building? Not good. Not exactly a good way that you want to end up going into an off season more than anything here. And that's the difference maker. That's the stuff that will drive you crazy. And I get it. I get all of it. And truth be told, I truthfully think that however the off season is going to give us, it's going to give us something. All right. It will. And I think more than anything else, what I watch with Baltimore, don't stop running the football. If you're going to pass it when you have the opportunities. But if that run game is efficient, and this is what you purchased Derrick Henry for, is to run the football. And if you're not going to do that on a consistent basis, then don't bother. And Baltimore completely fell off. I mean, the start of the season, defensively was horrible. They trade away their edge rusher, Odafe Owe. And next thing you know, I had some good hopes the defense was going to end up rebounding. And Baltimore didn't quite address those problems pretty quickly. And now they unraveled injuries, inconsistencies, play calling, all the things. And that's what led to their downfall. So Baltimore, they're out of the playoffs. In goes Pittsburgh. And now the playoffs are going to be without Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson. And if you're Lamar, I know you're sitting there and you're pretty much ticked off. And I don't blame you. But this is where the upper management, the guys upstairs, and I'm talking Steve Bisciotti and Eric DaCosta, you really have to think about this very, very carefully and crucially. Because this is not going to be a fun conversation, and I promise you that. It's not going to be. But I can guarantee you that this is where the tougher conversations and the roster shifts and everything that comes with it, that is where you're going to find out what Baltimore is really made of. You really are going to find that out. And I don't know. I think Baltimore has a lot of questions. I think they have a lot of adjustments they need to do. But this should be interesting to see exactly how this will work out in the end. Good stuff. Really good show. I will tell you, though, that Sunday night game was a lot of fun on both ends, and it came all the way down to the wire, and that's exactly what these AFC North teams, that's exactly how they play. And it all comes down to the 18th week, last game of the season, and they left it all on the table. And sure enough, they did exactly what they wanted to. And Pittsburgh, they got bailed out, and now they're in the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers is back in it after a couple of year hiatus and is now going to lead Pittsburgh to potentially a playoff win if he can do so. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be interesting. All right, good stuff. We got a lot to discuss, lots of breakdowns. I will tell you, coming up next, because we will talk a little bit more later on about the coaching fires and the opening jobs, because now there's 6 jobs open. And some of those jobs already have a GM in place. Some of those spots already have, they don't even have a GM and coach. So one's going to need a coach. Others are going to need both coach and GM. And you got to think, too, there are even some organizations that already fired their GM. Miami's one of them. So, yeah, crazy enough how that's working out. But I will say, watching Indiana give Alabama exactly their money's worth on just from the whole game, physical play, and running the football efficiently, and then Fernando Mendoza giving you reasons why he's the number 1 overall pick. We'll talk more about the college football playoffs here after the break. All righty, folks. Well, 2026 has already been a grand, which we know, New Year's resolutions, change in dietary, change in habits, change in maybe starting a new hobby, starting a podcast like here, or, maybe you want to open up, an audio book, so whatever it may be. 2026 is filled with New Year's resolutions. Well, here's a New Year's resolution for you to start in 26. Our good partners at Payday Fantasy is your number 1 go-to player pick'em app, and it's available in all 50 states. Yes, it's available in all 50 states. Go online, download it on your mobile device through Google Play in the App Store. So when you sign up, the best way to kick off 2026, you sign up, you get $5 for free on your entry, that free $5 entry. On top of that, when you use the promo code I gift to you in 26, use the promo code SNAKE, you get 100% deposit match of up to $100. All you have to do after sign up, pick the player, pick the outcome, sit back and relax and watch the game and get paid. That's all you got to do. The simplest steps to your fun payday time with Payday Fantasy in 2026. Use promo code SNAKE, 100% of up to $100 in your deposit match and free $5 entry. Get paid with Payday Fantasy.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Man, college football, and I've been saying this for a while. I've been saying it for a long time. But college football's never been in the happy industry. And I don't even think they should ever step foot in the happy business because you cannot make everybody happy. So over the weekend, I thought it was fun. But college football, what it was meant to be, and we've had George Teague on here last week, and we were talking about, not only Alabama, but we were talking about the state of the college football, just the plethora of it. Because we know no bracket is ever perfect. It never is. I don't think it ever will be. But you've got a 12-team playoff. And just like college hoops in this regard, you have 64 teams that come in there. 18 of them are really good. They're the ones that are substantial, and the ones that you kind of already have an idea, they're going to be the best of the best. And then the rest of them are basically your Cinderella story and fill-ins. That's really all that it comes down to. So with college football, 12-team playoff, 8 of them are guaranteed to be really good. Now, I was watching this weekend, and I thought this was fun. But Indiana showed you exactly what this program, what Kurt Cignetti, all of what they plan to do. Because here's what's funny, and here's what's crazy. Not only did Indiana beat Alabama convincingly and on a destroying margin, but Indiana has recruited like crazy. This is only just the opening of the transfer portal. And everybody's already moving. They're already making the moving pieces. And Indiana has doubled down on a lot of their transfers. They've doubled down on them. So just earlier, they get Josh Hoover from TCU. I like the kid. I think he's pretty damn good. And the other thing is they also get themselves a really good wide receiver. They got a really good defensive back, and they got another running back. And so it's going to continue to just keep adding and adding and adding and adding. And all Indiana for a basketball program, this ain't bad. This is really good. But what it's sending a message to everyone in college football is that we beat Alabama convincingly. Now they got to face Oregon. And Oregon, I'm sorry to say this, last time I watched them play, Indiana did whatever they wanted to Oregon. That's the truth. And then comes the transfer portal opening, and they've been getting an awful lot of really good transfers. I'm not making this up. And what it's doing is it's sending a message. We do not want to just be a Cinderella story in some people's eyes. We want to have dominance in college football. And I'm all for it. A basketball program that has completely transformed their football program in 2 years. And Indiana is for real. They're a really good football team, and they're going to continue to get better in the next few years. But that just showed you right there from just the transfer portal and, of course, their recruitment. They want to dominate. That is the story. They want to dominate. They want to continuously be a pain in the butt to a lot of teams in college football. And after making those moves earlier, you are going to see Indiana really make some noise in the Big Ten. Now, you still will have your Ohio States. You're still going to have your Michigans. You're still going to have a bunch of other teams in the Big Ten. But here's the problem. Nebraska is going to lose Dylan Raiola to the transfer portal. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And on top of all of that, you got other teams in the Big Ten who are also still going to be dominant. They are also going to be very competitive. So lots of other teams, they're going to want to end up making moves. A lot of them, they want to get better. So I like from what I've seen. And Indiana, they will be a name in which many people in college football are going to love listening and hearing about. And look, I've heard a lot of those kids in Indiana. Okay. I remember when I was 21 and I had my first beer, and I know how exciting that it may be to finally have relevance in a football program. Seriously, it's fun. It's great. But just understand something. Like, now we've got Miami against Ole Miss, and I think Miami, with that defense, is really going to give it to Trinidad Chambliss. And I thought he was really, really good against Georgia. He made a lot of really good plays. He's twitchy, throws really well, accurate. And then, you watch Oregon play Texas Tech, and they handled business. Indiana did their part. And so now Oregon, Indiana, Miami, and Ole Miss, who would have thought we would have gone to this point with a playoff with Ohio State, Alabama, and Oklahoma, and multiple other programs, and yet y'all are still not happy. Give me a break. I love this. Let's get into the news.
And now, here we go. Hey everyone, it's story time. This is the hot press.
Lots of moves in the NFL. So, of course, after 1 year of spending it with the Las Vegas Raiders, the Raiders have fired Pete Carroll, and John Spidek still remains as the general manager. This will be, once again, another coaching fire that now totals up, since hiring and firing, the Raiders have now totaled $50 million in dead money to head coaches. They cannot get the coaching right. So it's unfortunate that Pete Carroll and company, this is where it stops and this is where it ends. A complete and utter disaster in Las Vegas, where we thought there would have been a culture change up from here, but it's not going to happen. 3-14 season, number 1 overall pick, and Pete Carroll is now out the building. So Raiders owner Mark Davis ended up making a statement that John Spidek, the general manager, he was going to lead football operations with minority owner Tom Brady in the search of their next head coach. Together, they will guide football decisions with a shared focus on leadership, culture, and alignment with the organization's long-term vision and goals. We're looking for someone to build this the right way and not think we've got to produce 10 wins or whatever next year. It'd be great to do what when we see teams like the Patriots, Jags, and Bears flip it. I've always had a thought that you're never as good in the league as you think you are, and you're never as far away as you think you are, and we're just going to go open-minded. Well, let me just tell you something, John. Those teams you mentioned there, I'm going to tell you, New England, like Robert Kraft had to fix his wrongs, which was one, you made Gerard Mayo the head coach, and you paid up big top dollar money to get Mike Vrabel. Right, check. Now the Jags, they go and get Liam Cohen and a young coach. And yet I still have question marks with Jeff Gladstone, the GM, but it's worked. They look like a complete and for real team. I mean, it's hard to say about the Jacksonville Jaguars. They looked really, really good. And this is the best look of Trevor Lawrence we've ever seen. And so the Jags, they look like a for real team. And Liam Cohen has been leading the way, barely turning the ball over, getting really good drives. They look better. And Ben Johnson, here's the other thing. They've addressed the O-line. Caleb Williams is barely turning the ball over, and they play really good physical defense. So Chicago threw away the television. As for the Raiders, you're basically a West Coast Jets. You don't have healthy structure in the building, and that's where you really need to focus on first. So, and I don't think they can't get head coach right to save themselves. They really can't. And so now they have to go into finding a head coach and the right one that can honestly turn things around. They got a number 1 overall pick, and it's probably going to end up being Fernando Mendoza. I can already feel it. I can already see it. The offensive line, I do not trust. It's interesting. But I think for the Raiders, they got a long ways to go. And look, these teams that turn things around had at least a decent enough culture to where they allowed it for them to be able to turn things around. The Raiders have been dealing with dysfunction for years and years since I can even remember this. So, interesting. Now, a couple things. Miami, they're planning to keep Mike McDaniel, and he's going to be part of the Dolphins GM search process because they need to get a GM that's going to be up and onto the same page. Unfortunately, Chris Greer was not part of that. Now, here's a crazy uppercut that many people did not see coming. So, just today, Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa was asked about from reporters after he was benched in the final 3 games of the season that Tua is open to a fresh start in 26. So they started Quinn Ewers after the loss against the Steelers in 15, and Tua, who spent the remaining 3 games in the team's inactive emergency third quarterback, which again, you kind of already knew what Tua is. Said he was disappointed, but the decision was out of his control. He also declined to comment on whether he had played his final game for the Dolphins, and basically said that when it comes to starting up a new start, said that would be dope. I would be good with it. So I think this relationship between the Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa, I think it's done. I think it's over. I don't think you already kind of see the limitations that Tua has. And it's the same thing that we've been saying about with Dylan Gabriel. And I mean, this is not working out. It's not working out himself. So I think in my case with this, they got to find a quarterback. They got to get somebody up and into this building because Mike McDaniel, you also got to know too, his job is on the line to turn this thing around. They love the optimism. In the second half of it, after Chris Greer got fired, this team was playing really good. They were playing really good football. So the Dolphins, I think, could very much figure this out. But I just think, with Tua, he's not your guy. Every executive has all been telling you the whole entire time, Tua is not the answer. And they still went with Tua anyway. So we got big sources that's happening in the NBA. And so according to Shams Charania, that there is a possibility that the Atlanta Hawks, four-time All-Star Trae Young and his agents Aaron Mintz, Drew Morrison, and Austin Brown are working with a franchise on a trade. So Young's reps and Hawks general manager Ansai Salah have begun positive and collaborative talks over the past week on finding a resolution. The Hawks and Young's agents have maintained dialogue for his future over the past several months since the franchise elected not to offer a contract extension to the 27-year-old. Young has this season and next season at a $95 million total remaining on his deal with a player option in the offseason. And Trae Young has been the face of the Atlanta Hawks franchise since he was drafted in 2018. And he sits as the team's all-time leader in three-pointers and assists. Led to them to their postseason 3 times in 8 years, and including a run to the Eastern Conference Final in 2020. So here's the look, and this is what's crazy. So the Atlanta Hawks with Trae Young on the floor this year is 2-8 with a win percentage of 200. Points per game is at least 120 something, but they have certainly not been able to shut down a lot of, just honestly, they haven't been able to shut down a lot of their opponents. And then without Trae Young, this is the crazy part, 15-12. And they're only scoring 2 points less than what they are. And they've also knocked down the opponent's points per game to about a few. And their field goal percentage is knocked down by 3% against them. So, yeah, this is hard. And I like Trae Young, but I just don't think that with Atlanta, they're going a completely different direction and a completely different scheme of things. So I don't see this really working out with Trae Young. I know everybody wanted this to work for a long time, and especially making it up and into the postseason, but I don't think this is going to work out for him. And I don't think this is going to be the plan for the organization moving forward. So that is unfortunate. It is what it is. And yeah, crazy. I never thought that we would honestly get up to this point where Trae Young is now being on the talks about being traded. Crazy to even believe that has been the case. But I think it's also crazier with the record. All right, that's going to do it for the news.
And now, here we go. Hey everyone, it's story time. This is the hot press.
The transfer portal, it's it's exciting. It is on fire. I love it. I love every part of this thing. And it is great to really see it. So, to the NFL, there are 6 jobs open. All right. And of the 6 jobs that we potentially have right now, there's only going to be a couple jobs I really do like. And it's not a ton. Like you got to think about, one, the atmosphere in the organization. Is it a healthy culture or not so much? Now, what I have seen with all of this is that the teams that fired their coaches know that they needed a different direction more than anything else. And they need a competent coach. They either need both a coach and a GM, or one that just needs the coach because they already had the GM. They just need a different direction. And I'm okay with that too. So of the teams right now that are looking for coaches, the Tennessee Titans, they already got rid of Brian Callahan. The Giants have already gotten rid of Brian Dable. And just recently, Pete Carroll fired, has the number 1 overall pick. The Cardinals just recently ended up firing Jonathan Gannon, which I thought was pretty crazy considering the fact that Gannon, the minute that he started Jacoby Brissett, and when you look at Kyler Murray, I still think Kyler needs a change of scenery. Like, I don't see him sticking around up in Arizona for very long. But this also goes to show what they are as a franchise with their owner, the Bidwells. It is not a healthy organization by any means. And then the Cleveland Browns, they fired Kevin Stefanski. And I think a lot of this was kind of coming because Cleveland, Kevin, 2-time coach of the year, and really turning around the organization, all just for him to be fired because of a bunch of things that really spewed up, including the whole Shedeur Sanders thing. You didn't want to start him because you wanted Dylan Gabriel to be your successor, and unfortunately, Dylan Gabriel is another Tua. And we already came to conclusion that ain't working and that ain't happening. Then, and so on top of all of that, you got a really good defense you do not want to waste in Cleveland. And they hold the 6th pick. Now, you also have the Atlanta Falcons, who lost their pick to the Rams. So they have a little harder time really having to deal with this. But they are in the 13th spot. It's better than being up there in like the top 10s. So they somewhat are in the middle of the order, but they technically do not have that great and crazy of a pick. So luckily, that's not the case. I do think, though, when I think of Atlanta, because they fired both Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot, they need a different change. And I'll be honest, I think the way that I would go about this is, so the 6 teams, the 6 coaching jobs available. So Titans, Giants, Browns, Falcons, Raiders, and and then you've got the Browns. So to me, if you can honestly deal with Jimmy Haslam in Cleveland, and depending on that, and as long as the staff, because Andrew Berry ain't going nowhere. Okay, he already ended up getting picks, and he got a bunch of trades, and Cleveland's got themselves a really good future as long as Jimmy Haslam isn't touching his hands in the pies. So Cleveland, I think, could be a pretty good destination. Yep, the Raiders' job is open. My big thing is with the Raiders, because they've already got John Spidek. He's not going nowhere. And now you got Tom Brady. And I'll be honest with you. Does Tom understand the business side of things when you've got to end up looking for a coach? Because now you got to end up looking for a quarterback. And I think they're going to end up going with Fernando Mendoza. I truthfully, deep down, wholeheartedly do not think he is the be-all, end-all answer for the Raiders' dysfunction. I really don't. So the Raiders' job, I don't know. Because in my opinion, we've been dealing with this crap for years with Mark Davis. And John Spidek, like he is apparently he's likable in the organization. And he's got really good close ties with Tom, especially when they were up over there in Tampa Bay. But the point is, I want something that's going to at least be impactful in the culture. And when John Spidek ended up mentioning about the Patriots, the Jags, and the Bears, the difference is Chicago, knew they needed a competent offensive coach. You could not do this with Matt Eberflus because you're a defensive culture. You haven't been a dynamic offense ever in your franchise history. And the minute you got Ben Johnson, complete 360 turnaround. Liam Cohen in Jacksonville, no matter how wonky that it is, when you got the cons, and then you go and get a youngster in Jeff Gladstone and Liam Cohen, but you knew, and this is what's funny, you didn't realize that Liam Cohen was part of Sean McVay's tree. So he's been paying attention the whole time. And he really worked up Baker Mayfield, and he's worked up Trevor Lawrence. And I like this. Then there's Mike Vrabel. You know what he's capable of, and Tennessee fumbled on that. So, and the Raiders, honestly, are not any of those. New England, Robert Kraft knew he was wrong, had to rewrite his wrongs, and knew he had to do something different. So, to me, I don't like the Giants' job. I really do not like the Giants' job for a few reasons. Number one is your saving grace is Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo, and you've got Malik Neighbors. You got a couple of really good weapons, and you've got Andrew Thomas. You've got to fix the offensive line. It's decent, but it needs to be fixed. And then at the same time, you got to move one of those defenders, because to have four pass rushers, and you're right now not even the top dogs right now in the NFC, was inexcusable. And they weren't even creating that many amount of pressures. You got to get rid of one of those, because to me, I'm all about getting capital. I really am. So if you don't do that, then that is really going to hurt a lot of your. That's going to hurt a lot of your potential. And I also do say this, with Joe Shane in that building, I do not trust a whole lot, because you fumbled away Saquon Barkley, you fumbled out Daniel Jones, and he looks like the better version of himself, regardless of how things turned out. Like, it was bad for the Giants. The Giants knew they needed to do something different. So I don't really like too much of the Giants' job. As far as Cleveland, luckily you have Andrew Berry, but you better hope that Jimmy Haslam is not a problem. To me, truthfully, without a GM and without a coach. And here's a guy I like, Arthur Blank in Atlanta. Arthur really loves this team. He's willing to do whatever it takes. But you got to get a competent GM, and you got to, please, for the love of God, have a competent offensive coach. In my opinion, I think Atlanta has guys. I think they have some studs. They just need to end up, addressing more of it, whether it's offense or defense. I mean, Darnell Mooney, Drake London. To be honest with you, I'd be working to maybe getting a tight end in the draft, because with Kyle Pitts right now, it hasn't worked. It's not worked since his rookie season. And I don't know if this is really going to be the fit. It felt wonky. Now, Michael Penix, one of my biggest things is I want Michael Penix to succeed. So you need to get an offensive-minded coach in there, somebody who can understand Michael Penix's potential. Because if you go the other route, it ain't going to work. It's not going to work. I promise you that. So if you get that, that might help. Now, again, I know you're dealing with Kirk Cousins' contract, and I know you're dealing with not having a first-round pick because you gave it to the Rams, who are now sitting at 13th. So you got to give yourself a little bit more juice. And I think that's where they need that competent offensive coach. Get a competent GM, offensive-minded coach, get a trustworthy DC, and I think Atlanta would be much better. Mind you, I had playoff hopes for this team, and they let me down. So, yeah. In Tennessee, as long as you can deal with that owner in Tennessee, kind of up for grabs. It's open game. But, yeah, I kind of am heating with the Falcons, Cleveland, 50-50. It's not really a sexy job. Like, it's not really a sexy job opening this year. Not really. Because here's the thing. The Colts are sticking with Shane Steichen and with Chris Ballard, which rightfully so they should. Injuries happen. They're inevitable in the NFL. But Chris Ballard, you got to think about it. Many of the draft picks that he had, they hit. And so I don't understand why people wanted him out of the building. Like, injuries happen. Don't you remember what Daniel Jones looked like at 7-1? Like, did you forget about that already? Shane Steichen, I mean, he would have been a hot commodity as an offensive coordinator somewhere, but they weren't willing to give up on him. Mike McDaniel, they're not willing to give up on him. They just need a competent GM that's going to see him on the same page. That's it. So, yeah, the way I look at it. I think it's interesting, though, with the rumors about Kevin Stefanski being a Raiders coach. I mean, it could be interesting if you're trying to work on the offensive side of the ball and you give him at least a competent quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, maybe that might work. But I'm telling you, offensive line, all this stuff, it's not going to really flourish if you do not fix the culture of that building. All right. Take a break. We're going to be talking a lot, and also my predictions I made before the season started, and we're going to come into fruition with how it ended at the end of it. So don't go anywhere.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Man, so much fun that we've had in the NFL season. It was immaculate. It was crazy. And it was just exactly with what we all needed. No Chiefs, no Bengals, Joe Burrow, no Ravens. What are we going to do? So, all right. So I made my predictions before the season started. And to commence this, to getting the intro music up and in here, like I said, there were a lot of things that I was really adamant on, and a lot of things that I really thought was going to end up going that way. It didn't, and to me, I admit the fault. So let's go ahead and let's look at this here for a second. So before the season started, let's go to the AFC East. So originally I had Buffalo, New England, Miami, and the Jets. Bills and Patriots, I had them making the playoffs. Here was the outcome. The Patriots won the division. But the Bills also were making the playoffs, and Miami and the Jets, I got right. So only flip-flop was New England and the Bills. So New England takes the AFC East. They're the number 2 seed. They'll be facing the Chargers. And the Bills, they're the 3 seed or the 6 seed, and they'll be facing off against Jacksonville. So let's go now to the AFC North. So I originally had Baltimore, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland, because I felt Cleveland was going to be taking a step back because of the quarterback situation. Pittsburgh felt wonky to me. I didn't trust it. And I thought this was the opportunity for Joe Burrow to really, really set the tone up for himself. And Lamar Jackson would do Lamar Jackson things. Here's the result. It was not, which I got to fix that. So Pittsburgh now wins the division. Ravens are in second. Bengals at third, and the Browns at 4. So I really was wrong up on this one. Pittsburgh, they win the division. They're going into the playoffs, and not the Ravens. Let's go to the AFC South. Now, I had the Texans. I felt confident in CJ Stroud, and I also felt confident in the Texans defense. And then there was the Titans, who I felt could be the surprise team because of the way Cam Ward and the rest of them thought it could have been. Indianapolis could have been a competitive team, like through and through. That was not the case. And then Jacksonville, because of the trade and the first round pick to getting Travis Hunter, sacrificing a first round pick, they would be the last place team. And now here is the result. Jacksonville and Houston are in the playoffs. And Jacksonville wins the division. Colts end up going third, and the Titans were dead last. So I was really wrong about the South. I was really wrong about the Jags. It was a complete, utter cluster and a complete turnaround. Let's go to the AFC West. Now this one I felt like was the heftier one of all of them. Justin Herbert and the Chargers potentially winning the division. Chiefs would end up in second. Denver would be up in third, but a competent team. And then the Raiders, of course, last place. Here was the result. Denver wins the division. The Chargers are second, and they go to the playoffs as a wild card. Chiefs miss out on the playoffs. I did not see that coming. Not a ton of us did. Very rare. A couple people ended up seeing that. And then the Raiders, all knew everybody was going for the Raiders to be last. So, okay, now let's go to the NFC. So I felt the Eagles would win the division and break that streak of just every single team being the division winner in this specific division. The Commanders would make the playoffs, but it would be a tough battle for the Commanders than the Cowboys and Giants. Here was the result we got. Only Philly wins the division, and they're going to the playoffs, while Dallas finished second with a really good offense, terrible defense, even though that they traded for Quinnen Williams and a bunch of others. Washington really fell off a cliff. And then the Giants ended up last. I kind of figured that. Coaching, the quarterback, the offensive line, it was just not competent enough. Let's go to the NFC North. So this is where it gets really dicey. So I had the Vikings winning the division because there wouldn't be any film on J.J. McCarthy. They had a really good defense. Packers. This was also before Micah Parsons got traded to the Packers. Detroit at 3, and then the Bears 4. Now the Bears would be a competitive 4th place team. Let's see the result. Did anybody have the Chicago Bears winning the division? I didn't. I was completely wrong on all of that. And so now I have to face the fact that I got the South and the North wrong. So Chicago wins the division. Green Bay's the 7th seed. Minnesota out of the playoffs, and so are Detroit. So what's funny is Minnesota and Detroit, they were tied as far as the record goes. So they both miss out. Green Bay and Chicago. Chicago wins the division. Let's go to the NFC South. Tampa Bay and Atlanta, I felt like would have been a playoff team because Atlanta, they would have turned a lot of things around. Then Carolina, and then the Saints. Here was the result here. The Panthers win the division, and they're going to the playoffs thanks a lot to the Atlanta Falcons, which now Tampa Bay was a second-place team. Atlanta was third. They were a disappointment. And the Saints, they ended up in second like I predicted. They ended up last. And so now the Panthers win the division, and they go to the playoffs. So now let's go to the last one, the NFC West. I felt like this was going to be competitive either way. The Rams would win the division. Seattle would be a really good second in the division. San Francisco third, and then Arizona fourth. Now let's see what happened here. Sammy Darnold and the Seahawks win the division. Rams end up second. They're in the playoffs. San Francisco, with the schedule they had, ended up third, and they're in the playoffs. So Arizona was the only odd man out. And this was where I saw the entire playoff prediction. So I predicted Bills would have been number 1 seed. The Ravens would be 2. Chargers would be 3. And Houston would be 4. And then the 3 wild cards from 5 to 7 would be Chiefs, Broncos, and Patriots. Now let's look at what we have in the AFC. You've got the Broncos, number 1 seed, Patriots 2, Jacksonville 3, and Houston 4, Pittsburgh 4. So now, Houston is 5, Bills are 6, and the Chargers are 7. So now let's go into the NFC. Philadelphia, to me, would get the number 1 seed because they were coming off of a battle-tested year. Rams, Vikings, Buccaneers, Commanders, Seahawks, and Falcons. So now let's see the results. Seattle with the number 1 seed. Chicago is 2. Philly is 3. Carolina is 4. And then the Rams and the Niners and the Packers are the wild card teams. So the Rams now got to face the Panthers. And the Niners got to play the Eagles, and the Packers now got to play Chicago. See, this was a crazy turnaround. I couldn't even believe it myself. Just an absolute crazy turnaround. But I look at this and see the thing in which I got pretty accurately were in the East, Miami and the Jets. They both ended up exactly where they were, 3rd and 4th. And then the only flip-flop was Buffalo and the Patriots. And yet they're both in the playoffs. So I predicted both of them to go into the playoffs. Now, Baltimore was the oddball because now they're out and in are the Steelers. The Texans, I thought, would have won the division. Not quite. Jacksonville ends up winning it, but yet Houston is in the playoffs, though. But the only turnaround is Titans go last. But what's funny is only Indianapolis I predicted to be a 3rd-place team. Isn't that crazy? Then Cleveland was the only one that I got right as the last-place team. So then you go to the AFC West. And the only one that I predicted would be last was the Raiders. While everyone else, Denver wins the division, Chargers, they both actually made the playoffs, and the only one that I missed was the Chiefs. Now you go to the East in the NFC, Philadelphia would win the division, and I got that right. And the only thing that you get right on this was the last place team was the Giants. The only flip-floppers was the Cowboys and the Commanders. Totally missed on that. The only one which was a hard miss, well, actually, technically, the only thing was I had the Packers finishing second. I didn't think they'd make the playoffs, and they did. So I had them at second and not making the playoffs, and they're second, and they made the playoffs. Wow, what a turn of events. So I completely whipped out on that in the North. In the NFC South, the Saints spot on. And the only thing that really changed a lot of things up was the Bucs, Falcons, and Panthers. And Panthers are in the playoffs. I did not have that in my bingo card. Then the Rams and Seahawks I would have as playoff teams. The only ones I got right was the Cardinals and the 49ers in the spots. I did not have the Niners making the playoffs, and they are in the playoffs. But Seattle and the Rams, they both are in the playoffs, but Seattle wins the division. So how about that? Crazy to think, isn't it? Absolutely nuts. But I think it's also interesting when you think about it. When you do these predictions, there are times where surprises will happen before you even know it. And that's exactly what happened. So, yeah. I apologize for some that saw the graphic and not all of it was finished up. I thought it was. Unfortunately, it wasn't. But you get the idea. So, yeah. Crazy. But this NFL season's been fun. And so I will have my final top 10, at least going up and into the playoffs. This will be the final one because I will not have another top 10 afterwards as we're up and in playoffs. We're going to be doing more of playoff predictions more than anything. So sit back, relax. It's going to be a lot of fun. But good stuff. All right. We got to get out of here. A lot of fun hanging out with you guys. Really appreciate everybody for stopping on by. But Friday is where it's at. Because Friday we got two former NFL pros. One, a former NFL corner, Mark McMillan, is going to be joining us here. We're going to be talking about the Chiefs, talking about the Jets, and talking about the playoffs. We also have former NFL tight end Ed Smith, going to be talking about Atlanta. What do the Falcons need to do in the off season and also up and in the playoffs? And also, got a lot more coming along the way. But it's going to be a lot of fun on Friday, so I'm excited about that one, guys. I hope you are too. I appreciate everybody for being here tonight. We got to get up out of here. Enjoy the rest of the night, and we'll see you guys on Friday here on the show. Take care, everyone.